Okay, let's unpack this. We usually think of Los Angeles noir as a style, right?
Hmm.
Venetian blinds casting shadows, smoke curling in black and white, maybe a saxophone playing somewhere in the distance.
Right, it's a whole aesthetic.
But when you actually dig into the crime data, into the reality of LA homicide, that texture isn't a style. It's chaos. It is high-gloss vanity colliding head-on with absolute squalor.
It's the geography of disparity. I mean, you can cross one street and go from a pristine multi-million-dollar condo to a place that looks like it's been forgotten by civilization for 20 years.
Exactly.
And usually those worlds stay separate. The people in the condos, they don't mix with the people in the shadows.
Exactly. But today, we are opening a file, let's call it a narrative stack, that completely obliterates that separation. We're looking at what I'm calling the Jigsaw files.
Mm-hmm.
And that isn't just a clever name. It really feels like we're trying to assemble a puzzle where half the pieces are upside down
Right.
and the rest are from a completely different box.
It is a case that just defies the typical categorization we see in criminology. Usually, you look for a straight line.
Right. A leads to B.
Motive means opportunity. The husband did it for the insurance money. The drug deal went bad. But here, we are looking at a scatter plot.
And the data points on that plot are wildly different. We have Sophie Barlow, a 30-year-old office manager in Brentwood who lives a life of, Peloton bikes and organized spice racks.
Right.
Then we have Martha Mathias, a 72-year-old retired homicide detective living in a literal hoarder's palace in West L.A.
A complete 180.
And finally, tragically, we have Lynn Gutierrez, a developmentally disabled woman found in a landfill in Irwindale.
3 women who, on the surface, exist in completely different universes. They shouldn't ever cross paths. And yet they are tied together by a very thin, very sharp thread of past corruption.
So our mission today is to pull on that thread. We need to understand how you connect a pristine crime scene, a house filled with 3 decades of trash, and a landfill.
And the answer, and this is what's so fascinating, seems to lie in the mathematics of murder.
The mathematics.
Specifically, a statistical anomaly regarding the method of death. But we'll get to the math, because you really need to understand the scenes first to get why the math matters so much.
Okay, good point. Let's start with case file 1. Sophie Barlow. This is what I'm calling the control group scene because it's so normal on the surface.
Well, normal is the deceptive part. Sophie was found in her condo near the Westmont Mall. Now, I want you to picture this. She is sitting at her kitchen table. She's fully clothed.
Okay.
There are no signs of forced entry. The door wasn't kicked in. The windows weren't smashed.
Which usually implies she knew the killer. She let them in.
Or she let them in without fear, at least. She was just sitting there. But the staging is where it gets theatrical.
Theatrical? How so?
Her head is tilted back. It's almost on display. The killer wanted the ligature marks on her neck to be the very first thing the first responders saw.
So it wasn't just a killing. It was a presentation. A statement.
Exactly. But the real theater, the thing that sent the investigation careening down the wrong path immediately, was right in front of her. On the table, there was a plastic bowl.
A bowl? Like a Tupperware bowl?
Well, just a generic plastic bowl. But it was being used as an improvised ashtray. And inside, there were 2 cigarette butts. Marlboro Golds.
Now, in the source material, they make a big point about the smell of the apartment. Or rather, the lack of a certain smell.
Right, Sophie Barlow didn't smoke. Her lungs were pink at the autopsy. Her apartment smelled like cleaning products and scented candles. There were no other ashtrays, no lighter, no pack of cigarettes.
Just this one bowl with 2 butts.
Sitting there like a neon sign.
It feels like a clue left by a bad writer in a mystery novel. Here, police, look at this.
It does, doesn't it? It's almost too perfect.
Yeah.
But the police, being procedural, they have to follow the evidence, so they ran the DNA from the saliva on those butts.
And they got a hit.
A direct CODIS hit. Michael Heck.
Okay, let's profile Michael Heck for a second. Because if you're a detective and you pull this guy's file, you think you've just won the lottery.
You really do. He is Sophie's ex-boyfriend. That's Motive 101.
Classic.
He has a minor record, a felony assault charge from a bar fight years ago when he was in the service. So you have a guy with a history of violence, a broken relationship, and his DNA is sitting on the table right in front of the dead body.
It's a slam dunk. Case closed. Go to lunch.
That's exactly what Lieutenant Milo Sturgis thought. They arrest Heck. They threw him in lockup. It looked like a classic, tragic domestic violence case.
But this is where the story pivots from a police procedural to more of a legal thriller. And I have to say, the introduction of the defense attorney here is one of my favorite parts of the whole narrative.
Bettina Belgidis.
Yes.
Hmm.
She sweeps into the station wearing a white Armani suit, looking like she just stepped off a yacht in the Mediterranean.
She doesn't look like a public defender. She looks like money.
And she acts like it. She doesn't just come in to plead for bail or, ask for discovery. She comes in to dismantle the entire reality of the police's case.
She drops the alibi.
And we hear about alibis all the time. I was at the movies or I was sleeping. But this is what you'd call a digital fortress alibi.
It is absolutely airtight. At the exact window of time Sophie Barlow is being strangled. And the coroner was very, very specific about the time of death. Michael Heck was 120 miles away in La Jolla.
And we're not just taking his word for it.
No way. We have CCTV footage of him at a hotel. We have electronic keycard logs showing he entered his room and didn't leave.
Wow.
We have room service receipts with his signature. And perhaps most convincingly, he had a witness.
The blonde in the wig.
A married woman he was having a fling with. She's wearing a wig in the footage to hide her identity, but she gives a sworn affidavit. She verifies he was there with her the entire time.
So we have a physics problem. Michael Heck cannot be in two places at once. He cannot be strangling his ex-girlfriend in Brentwood while eating a club sandwich in La Jolla.
Oh.
But his DNA is on the table.
Which leads us to the only logical, albeit terrifying, conclusion.
The DNA was planted.
Planted. But think about the mechanics of that for a second. This isn't just, I'm going to frame this guy. You have to stalk him. You have to wait for him to smoke his specific brand of cigarettes.
Right.
You have to go through his trash, retrieve the butts without contaminating them, preserve them so they don't degrade, carry them to the murder scene, and place them perfectly.
That is psychological warfare.
It's what psychologists call instrumental violence. Sophie Barlow wasn't killed because of passion. She wasn't killed because of rage against her.
She was a prop.
She was a convenient prop. She was a vessel to hold the evidence that would destroy Michael Heck.
That dehumanization is just staggering. I will end this woman's life, stop her heart, just to put you in prison.
It tells us the killer is intelligent, incredibly patient, and holds a grudge against Michael Heck that borders on obsession. It moves the profile from angry ex to calculated executioner.
So the police have to let Heck go. And there's this scene at the Chelsea Club, this high-end, members-only spot where the detectives meet with Heck and his lawyer, and the vibe is just pure tension.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone is recording everyone else. It's paranoid. And Heck is oscillating between being cooperative and being absolutely terrified. He realizes now that if he wasn't the murderer, he was the target. Someone hates him enough to frame him for a capital crime.
And he drops a name we need to put a pin in for later.
Darren Alberts.
Right. Heck used to work for a law firm run by this guy, Darren Alberts.
And Heck claims he was just a paper pusher, handling expenses. But the firm wasn't just a law firm. It was essentially a massive criminal enterprise disguised as a legal practice.
What were they doing?
Alberts was ripping off clients, stealing millions in settlement money. It was a Ponzi scheme with a Juris Doctorate.
And Heck hints that maybe someone thinks he was a snitch. Or maybe just his association with that toxic firm put a target on his back.
So now we have a frame-up, a dead innocent woman, and a link to high-level corporate fraud. And while the police are trying to make any sense of that, the second piece of the jigsaw falls out of the box.
And this piece is jagged. Case file 2. Martha Mathias.
This one hits hard because Martha was one of us, in police terms. She was a pioneer, one of the first female homicide detectives in the LAPD.
Broke glass ceilings.
She was a legend. But when they find her, she is living in a nightmare.
What happened?
Her neighbors hadn't seen her in about a week. Mail is piling up. A welfare check is called in. And when the officers open the door, the smell hits them first.
Oh, no.
Must, decay, old paper. The hoarder's palace.
That's the description they used.
Yes, and we aren't talking about a messy house. We are talking about floor-to-ceiling stacks of newspapers, magazines, trash, old mail. Literally
floor-to-ceiling.
The police describe goat paths, these narrow winding trails carved through the junk, just so you can shuffle from the bedroom to the kitchen.
I want to pause on the psychology of this for a second. Why does a homicide detective, someone whose entire career is about bringing order to chaos, end up living like this?
It's actually a known phenomenon. It's often a response to trauma or a profound need for control. When you spend 30 years looking at the worst things humans can do to each other, the world feels dangerous.
Unpredictable.
Exactly. Hoarding is a way to build a wall. Literally. You surround yourself with stuff to create a buffer between you and the outside world.
A fortress of junk.
It's a defense mechanism. But in Martha's case, the fortress became a trap.
They find her in the garage.
Yes. Amidst all the piles of broken furniture and boxes, there is a chest freezer. And inside, wrapped in plastic, is Martha.
And the cause of death. It links her to Sophie.
Strangulation.
Again, and this is a huge but, there is a deviation in the MO. A gruesome one.
Post-mortem mutilation. Her arms were severed. The coroner, a Dr. Bajia Lipatinsky, she identifies tool marks consistent with a coping saw or a jigsaw.
Jigsaw.
Clean cuts. But here's the thing that baffles the profilers. Usually, if you dismember a body, it's for a practical reason. You are trying to hide the ID by removing the hands or head, or you're trying to fit a large body into a small container.
But Martha was a small woman.
Tiny. The coroner explicitly notes that if the killer had just bent her knees, she would have fit in the freezer perfectly. There was no physical need to cut off her arms.
So it was symbolic.
It had to be. And the way they were placed. The arms were crossed over her chest on top of the body.
What does that say to you? What's the message?
It feels personal. It feels like rage. Is it the long arm of the law cut short? Is it a mockery of her service? Or is it something more primal, a desire to desecrate? It suggests a level of personal hatred that wasn't present with Sophie. Sophie was a clean kill, a prop. Martha was savage.
And to add another layer of complexity to this hoarder's palace, as they are tearing apart the house, they start finding treasure.
Money. Cash. Everywhere.
Right.
$5,000 in an envelope taped to the back of the fridge, $10,000 stuffed behind a stack of National Geographics, and then $50,000 inside a slit in her mattress.
Whoa. So she's living in squalor, but she's sitting on, what, $65,000 in cash?
Over $60,000 found so far, yes.
Which completely rules out robbery as a motive.
Completely. If you kill an old woman for her money, you tear the house apart until you find it. You don't leave 60 grand sitting there.
So the killer either didn't know about the money or, and this is more frightening, they didn't care.
The money was irrelevant to their mission.
So we have two strangulations, one clean, one messy, one young, one old. But there's a third victim in this stack, and this is the one that really breaks your heart.
Case file 3. Lynn Gutierrez.
Lynn was Martha's daughter.
She was 46 years old, but developmentally disabled. The source material describes her as having the mental capacity of a roughly 12-year-old child. She was gentle, she loved dolls.
And she was obsessed with neatness.
A tragic, tragic contrast to her mother's hoarding.
She didn't live with Martha, right?
No, she lived at a nearby residential facility called Safe Place.
Safe Place.
Yeah.
The irony of that name just hangs over this whole story.
It really does. Lynn had a routine. She would walk from the facility to her mother's house for visits. She walked the same route at the same time every day she visited.
And she went missing right around the time Martha was killed.
Exactly.
Now, initially, the police have to do what police do. They look at the family. They have to consider the matricide angle. Did the daughter snap? Did she kill her mother?
It's the first question you have to ask. But the profile falls apart the second you look at Lynn. She had severe arthritis. She walked with a stiff gait. She was physically weak.
So the idea of her overpowering a former homicide detective,
Strangling her for several minutes, and then using power tools to sever limbs, it's physically impossible. Just not credible.
and the people at Safe Place vouch for her character.
They do. The director, Pam Buttons, is very protective of her. She actually tried to report Lynn missing but got the runaround from a lazy detective at the station. And there's a staff member, David Legale, an Air Force vet who seems very nice, maybe too nice, according to Detective Sturgis, who confirms Lynn's routine.
So if Lynn didn't kill her mom, where is she?
The resolution to that question is grim. Lynn is found a week later, but not in West LA. She is found miles away in a landfill in Irwindale.
A landfill. And the cause of death.
This is where the pattern breaks again. She wasn't strangled. She died from blunt force trauma to the head.
So hit with a bat or a pipe of something heavy.
Something heavy, yes.
Right.
And the investigation traces the trash truck back. Her body had been dumped in a commercial bin in downtown LA before being hauled to the landfill.
This tells us everything about her place in the killer's hierarchy, doesn't it?
It does. It's a hierarchy of victims. Sophie was a tool carefully staged to frame heck.
Right.
Martha was the enemy, brutally murdered and mutilated to send a message.
And Lynn.
Lynn was garbage, literally treated like refuse.
That is absolutely cold-blooded. It implies she was just. She was in the way.
Collateral damage. Maybe she walked in on the killer at her mother's house. Maybe the killer used her to get Martha to open the door, because Martha wouldn't open the door for a stranger, but she would for her daughter.
And when she served that purpose,
He's disposed of.
efficiently and brutally.
Exactly.
So we have 3 bodies, 2 strangulations, 1 blunt force. And this is where Dr. Alex Delaware, the psychologist in the narrative, has his eureka moment. Because initially you might think these are different killers, but he connects them using statistics.
The mathematics of murder.
I mentioned earlier that the rarity of strangulation is key here. Break that down for us, because we see people get strangled in movies all the time. It seems, common.
It is the CSI effect again. We think it's common, but in reality, it is incredibly rare. In modern homicide data, strangulation accounts for less than 1.5% of all murders.
Less than 1.5%. That is tiny.
It's a statistical outlier. Because think about what it requires. If you shoot someone, you can do it from across the room. It's quick. If you stab someone, it's often a frantic, momentary act. But strangulation is work.
It's physical.
It requires superior strength. It takes time, minutes of sustained pressure to actually kill someone, not just make them pass out. And most importantly, it is intimate.
Intimate.
You are right there. You are feeling the life leave the person. You are often looking into their eyes. It's not detached.
It's personal.
Highly personal. So Delaware's argument is one of probability. What are the odds of 2 unrelated women being strangled in West LA within the same week by 2 different killers?
The odds must be astronomical.
Statistically, it's almost impossible. It has to be the same hands.
Which forces us to find the link. We have to connect the pristine Sophie Barlow to the hoarder, Martha Mathias. And that link brings us right back to the guy we wrote off, Michael Heck.
Or rather, the entity that employed him, the Alberts law firm.
This is where the corruption angle comes roaring back. We know Heck worked for Darren Alberts. We know Alberts was running a massive fraud.
But here is the new intel that closes the loop. When did Martha Mathias transfer out of homicide and into the fraud theft division?
Looking at the file, it says 10 years ago.
Exactly 10 years ago. And when did the official LAPD investigation into Darren Alberts' corrupt firm begin?
Let me guess. 10 years ago.
Bingo! Martha wasn't just some random retired cop. She was likely the lead investigator who took down the Alberts firm.
So the theory finally coalesces. Martha was the bulldog who ruined the criminal enterprise.
And Heck is the employee suspected of being the snitch who gave her the information.
And someone is out there settling the score. They frame the snitch for a murder he didn't commit, the ultimate destruction of his life, and they execute the cop who led the charge.
It's revenge. Pure and simple. You ruined us, now we ruin you.
But there's a complication, a big one.
A very big one.
It can't be Darren Alberts himself.
No.
Why not? He's the boss. He lost the millions. He has the motive.
Because Darren Alberts is currently a vegetable. Delaware checks his medical records through a neuropsychologist contact. The guy has advanced frontotemporal dementia. He's in a care facility. He can't feed himself, let alone plan a complex double murder involving DNA transfer and power tools.
So the head of the snake is dead, metaphorically speaking.
But the body is still moving. The venom is still potent.
We are looking for an avenger, someone loyal to Alberts, or maybe someone else who was ruined by that investigation, a partner, a child.
That is the pivotal question. Who else was there? A silent partner, a son, a fixer.
Let's talk about the fixer profile for a moment. Because the killer is clearly capable. This is not some random act of violence.
Highly capable. Let's look at the skill set required here. 1, surveillance. They watched Heck long enough to get the cigarettes.
Right.
2, forensics knowledge. They knew how to plant DNA and stage a scene to mislead police.
Okay.
3, physical strength. Strangling 2 women and then hauling Lynn's body into a commercial dumpster. That takes power. And 4, emotional detachment. The ability to use Sophie and Lynn as nothing more than tools.
This isn't an amateur. This feels professional.
Oh.
Or at least very experienced.
It screams enforcer, someone who used to do the dirty work for the firm, off the books.
Could it be Michael Heck playing some kind of elaborate double game? I mean, is he a mastermind?
It's a valid question. Is the frame-up actually a double bluff? Did he frame himself badly so he would get off and look like a victim? But the alibi is just too good.
It's too perfect.
It's too perfect. Unless he hired a hitman who also looked exactly like him on CCTV, it just doesn't track. He seems genuinely terrified.
What about the nice guy at the care facility, David Legale?
Milo Sturgis is suspicious of him, and frankly, so am I.
Why? I mean, from the file, he just seems helpful. An Air Force vet?
He's the solid citizen suspect, Air Force vet, no record, polite, but he fits the physical profile. He's strong. He knows tools. He knew Lynn's schedule perfectly.
Yeah.
And there is that cynical detective intuition that says, nobody is this nice. Sometimes the most normal-seeming people hide the biggest secrets.
But what is his connection to a law firm from 10 years ago? We don't have that.
That is the missing piece of the jigsaw. If he's a killer, he has to be connected to Alberts. Maybe he was a client who lost everything. Maybe he's a relative we don't know about. We don't have that link yet.
So the investigation is pivoting back to the past. They need to find the personnel list of that defunct firm. They need to find the ghosts.
And that leads us to the current status of the deep dive. Milo Sturgis is tracking down a retired FBI agent named Walter Karski.
Karski is the hope. He's the key.
Karski worked the Alberts case with Martha back in the day. If anyone knows who the shadow employees were, the off-the-books enforcers, the bagmen, the fixers, it would be him.
The narrative ends with Milo and Alex driving to Ventura to meet Karski. It's a race against time before the trail goes completely cold, or the killer decides he has more scores to settle.
It feels like we are on the precipice of the answer. The connection is there, the Alberts firm, but the specific individual, the who, is still in the shadows.
You know, as we wrap this up, I want to step back from the procedural details and talk about the theme that really sticks with me in this case. It's not the gore or the complexity, it's the isolation.
It is the thematic undercurrent of the whole story, isn't it?
Look at Martha. She spent her life fighting bad guys. She was tough. But in the end, she was terrified. She built a wall of trash to keep the world out.
But that wall became her tomb. She couldn't escape because she had trapped herself. She died alone, surrounded by thousands of objects, but no people.
And Lynn, she was in a safe place. I mean, that's the name on the sign. But she was isolated by her disability, by her inability to communicate her fears.
A simple walk to her mother's house.
Something we all take for granted. It cost her life.
And even Sophie, she was moving on, focusing on herself, living the independent LA life. But that independence meant she was alone in her apartment when the killer knocked. It just highlights how vulnerable we all are when we are disconnected.
It's a chilling reminder that crime is predatory. It seeks out the isolated. It seeks out the gaps in our social fabric.
And it reminds us that the past refuses to stay buried. We are talking about events from 10 years ago. Millions of dollars stolen, lives ruined. You think it's over. You think the book is closed.
But someone out there is still keeping score.
And they are settling that score in blood.
It makes you wonder, how many other closed chapters in people's lives are just waiting for someone to reopen them?
That is a terrifying thought to leave us with.
We will keep following this case as new information comes to light, specifically regarding this mysterious Alberts Avenger. But for now, that's the deep dive on the Jigsaw murders.
Stay curious and stay safe.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.